and welcome to this episode of Stratola Spectrum. I'm your host, Dinesh Chandrasekhar. In this episode, we're going to have a very candid conversation with a seasoned technology and AI executive, Conor Twomey. Conor is a much sought after speaker and contributor in advanced and frontier topics like data analytics, machine learning, AI, and generative AI. He currently runs his own company called AI.1, prior to which he was the head of AI strategy at KX. In this episode, I hope to ask Conor about his recent trip to Davos, his conversations there with several AI and technology leaders, his key takeaways, and his current viewpoints on the AI landscape from the vantage point that he has. So let's get into the episode. So Conor, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. Welcome.
Thanks, Dinesh. It's great to be back speaking with you. I always have tremendous fun. So I'm excited for whatever it is we're going to chat about today.
Oh, we got plenty of stuff to talk about. So first off, knowing that you're the world traveler, which part of the world are you dialing from today?
So currently in New York City, but have been in Austin, Texas, Calgary, and Switzerland over the last 3 weeks.
Well, let's double click on the Switzerland part because I know that you've been to Davos recently. So for the lesser mortals amongst us, tell us first off, what Davos is and what the big deal is about going there.
So Davos is a kind of an international meeting of the minds as part of the World Economic Forum. It's a 3 or 4 day long, almost festival of geopolitics, technology, and business, all intersecting at the same time. And so a small town called Davos gets taken over, and there's a small little promenade that lasts for maybe a mile. And typically these storefronts would be shoe shops or cafes. They all get taken over by these big industry technology companies. And so I spent a lot of time at Qualcomm House, NASDAQ House, spent time with AWS and McKinsey. And so everyone really is there to spend time with thought leaders, industry innovators, and really that intersection between geopolitics, technology, and business. It's the only event that has the intersection of those three.
Oh, fun. That should be interesting. So I'm assuming that you rub shoulders with a lot of the who's who of the industry. Do some name dropping here.
Oh, okay. Shameless name dropping. So got to spend some time with Michael Dell while I was there. So he was literally just walking down the promenade. I don't think he had much say in the matter, but I said, Michael, Conor Twomey, lovely to meet you. So I got to spend time with him. I got to meet Andrew Ang, one of the world's leading voices in AI, which was incredible. We got to discuss self-writing software as a key topic that's near and dear to his heart and to my heart as well. And got to meet with CEOs, the CEO of Glean, Arvan Jain, for example, the CEO of Liquid AI, Raman, just absolutely phenomenal access to people. The global head of Deloitte, had a nice 10-minute long walk with him along the promenade. The head of AI for McKinsey, who wrote the book on McKinsey's data and AI transformation. So literally the access that you get is phenomenal. I had breakfast with the head of Quantum Black, McKinsey's AI and data and analytics division. And so you're really getting an opportunity to see firsthand people like Jan LeCun speak, Demis, the CEO of DeepMind. It was just phenomenal, Dinesh. It was a pinch me experience.
At this point, you got to stop because I'm turning green with envy here.
Next year, we got to book it in.
We should do that. So with all these amazing people that you met, what were some of the key conversations that happened? What were some of the broad themes that you spoke about? I know it's probably just AI mostly, but I'm just saying still.
Yeah, I think people had told me in advance the secret to Davos was that you're going to get kind of 2 minutes to introduce a topic, and you can't be salesy. So what's your spiky point of view, or what's your perspective? And mine was really around self-writing software. So this idea of agentic software engineering. This is complete software applications that are ideated, created, tested, and deployed entirely autonomously by artificial intelligence. And so self-writing software, or AI that writes software. And this field has really expanded and improved through 2024. So we've seen this sort of evolution from using AI during the software development lifecycle to improve things like documentation and testing, to using it. That was kind of towards the start of last year. Towards the end of last year, it was about using AI in a co-pilot type experience, helping you to debug errors, maybe write pieces of code, do autocomplete, suggest improvements. And what we've really began to see, probably beginning in April of 2024, but really accelerating towards the end of the year, was self-writing software. So the idea that you can give it an English language prompt or a natural language prompt, and tools like Replit, Cursor's getting there, but Replit, Blitzy, Open Hands, Devin are really, it's unthinkable. And until you show people a demo of this type of technology, people find it difficult to understand exactly how it operates and what it looks like. And so really my pitch in Davos was, by the year 2029, we've calculated that more software will have been developed by AI than all of the software that exists since the beginning of computer science. And so if you think about all of the space junk that's going to be created, as the number of software engineers grow from about 30 million people globally today to, the potential for 8 billion people to be able to generate and write software, it's going to create an increasingly difficult challenge to actually maintain, manage, transform. Yeah, potentially you're going to have bounty hunters out there trying to find rogue code to shut it down to, save storage and compute costs. So very, very much painting a picture of what a world would look like where anybody and everybody can begin to write software, and really starting to talk about what challenges that creates in the future.
This is a great topic, and I think you touched on something super hot, and I would love to like double click on a couple of things. One, with the advent of these kinds of coding agents and software that can actually write software, or AI that can write more and more code, um, there is that notion that, oh, engineers, the community of engineers is going to be depleted, it's going to be taken over by AI and all that. And then there is the other camp, which is about, no, 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 it's actually going to produce more software engineers if at all possible. I like your point of where you're saying you're democratizing this access to coding, or everybody becoming an AI engineer or a software engineer. Um, is that like how you see the world, of everybody being able to like do this?
Yeah, so this was a huge theme in Davos as well, and it was around AI. But I'll talk about it in the AI context, and then we'll move into the software engineering again.
Yeah.
It was talking about not confusing engineering and science.
Okay.
So engineering is the building; it's the roll up your sleeves. You don't need to understand gravity to know how to build a building. And so engineering is able to give principles that deliver outcomes. Science is really the investigation of how something works. So why does it work? How does it work? And it was a big theme in AI, particularly around transparency and explainability, which has been an issue around enterprise adoption of the technology. And so when we think of software engineering versus software science, software engineering, the ability to generate software, the time that it takes to generate software is going to trend towards zero, and the cost of developing new software is going to trend towards zero. But I think as you see software engineering becoming commoditized, I think software science,
Hmm.
so architects, people who can think deeply about how a piece of code actually serves a specific business purpose and outcome in the broader context of an enterprise, is going to become a very much in-demand skill set. And so just because people are able to rapidly prototype new applications, business logic, or front ends, whatever it might be, the ability to actually integrate that into a broader enterprise is something that will change dramatically. And so a little bit like how in the advent of personal computing in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, accountants would have thought that a spreadsheet was going to put them out of a job. But really, it just changed the role of an accountant, where they focus their time, how they focus their expertise, and how they can serve their end customers. And so I see that as a very strong analogy for what's going to happen in the software engineering, software science, software architecture space.
Love it. I think that's a great analogy. Uh, Maybe one other more personal side of this whole concept is like last week, I was noodling around with LLMs and I was trying to code a Chrome extension for some of the things that I was trying to accomplish. And, given my technical background, I thought, maybe I'll just try what the LLMs can do, right? So I tried like two or three of them, ChatGPT, Claude, Llama, and I was like trying with them. And what I noticed was it was able to generate the code that you would need for a Chrome extension. First off, it failed. I was able to like give it feedback saying, well, this is the error that happened, blah, blah, blah. And then it was able to try like more, okay, I see what the problem is. Let me fix it. And then it was trying to debug and it was like adding more code to it. At one point, there was this error message which clearly said, here's the file, here's the line 75 where this has this issue, right? And being the programmer that I am, I know what the problem is. I could see what the code does, and it was trying to access a property of an object that doesn't exist, so it's bombing. But the LLM was like going back to a different file altogether and was trying to fix a completely different thing, right? So at one point, I kind of got frustrated saying, why are you not why are you not fixing line 75, right? So, do you see the maturity of where we are today as a challenge and how fast, because you said 2029, people, 8 billion people are going to be like doing this, right? So, how fast do you think this maturity will get better? Because right now we are in the stage where it's not production worthy, where I cannot trust the code to be pushed out into, production automatically.
No, correct. You cannot be a non-technical user and all of a sudden generate beautiful code. It's like you can't be a non-musician and write a Mozart symphony. And so even if you are, an accomplished musician, you still can't write a Mozart symphony, relatively speaking, today.
That, yes.
And so what we've seen is for quick and dirty prototyping, front end type activity, or for very basic business logic, you can iteratively and rapidly prototype, and you're able to the software itself can recognize the errors, understand and make the fixes. But what we often see, and it happens more often than we'd like, the software will get to a point where it's trying to fix the wrong problem, and it'll continue to go down a rabbit hole that is a red herring that'll never actually solve the issue.
Right.
And so it goes into this infinite loop of trying to add more code and more complexity to a part where there isn't an issue at all. And so it's one of the things that we've seen some of the platforms out there do a very good job of having a rollback function. So rather than continuing to stack layer and layer and layer on top of something that's broken, actually roll back to the last time it was unfixed and try a different approach. So what we're seeing is a combination of factors. We're seeing context windows extend. So you can actually have more information, more code, and more context being pushed into each individual prompt and LLM call. Because really what agentic software engineering is doing is taking a complex series of tasks and breaking it down into individual tasks, and then chaining those together with different agentic personas. And Dinesh will definitely get time to talk about agentic personas shortly.
Yep.
But whether it's software planning, front-end building, different personas and different actors. And so the context window is getting bigger. Memory is also becoming increasingly important. And so another element of context window size is how much memory a system can actually retain or maintain through each prompt and interaction. And
Short,
so
short term and long term, right? I mean, the style of coding that I want, the kind of parameters or the guardrails that I want to implement that I would have like predefined early on. So every single piece of code later on follows that same guideline and so forth.
exactly, Dinesh. And so the improvements that we've seen, this journey began with Cognition's Devon probably in March or April of last year, where they had an incredible demo, blew the world away. People who had seen this technology in action could not unsee this technology.
Mm.
And then they've gone a little bit quiet, but that's okay. But there's companies like Cosign with Genie, Open Hands, Blitzy, and then more general purpose agentic platforms like Poolside and Crew and Crusoe. And so what we've seen is the model accuracy is improving. So switching out that large language model for a better code-specific large language model is improving the accuracy of results. The context windows are getting larger, And so that's reducing the number of errors that people are seeing, and the memory is getting longer. And all of that, each element by itself is an incremental improvement, but combined is leading to compound improvement. And so when we were having this, if we had this discussion last May, I would have told you it's not very good at all. It's got a memory like a goldfish. Everything disappears. You can do very small little widgets. And now you're able to take on more of the actual problem space. And that's something that's only going to improve over time.
Very cool. So going back to Davos again, what other key conversations or themes cropped up? What else was interesting?
So I did a concept afterwards. I was thinking on the flight back. There was 3 key things that I stole from Davos, 3 key concepts I came back that I felt I needed to tell the world about. And there was 3 concepts I wanted to give the world. And so the AI engineering versus AI science was a key point. And so really that was talking through what we understand, what's working well, and what the steps are towards AGI, or some sort of super intelligence, however you want to call it. That was a key theme. I think we also saw with the role that China is playing specifically on both innovation and model development, this tension, this unspoken AI war that's happening between the US and China, and whether there needs to be global collaboration. Put into that mix as well was closed source versus open source models, and obviously DeepSeek was a key topic as well. But so there's kind of three core things that I took from Davos. One was AI engineering versus science. The second was semantic bleaching. And so this is something that anyone who works in data analytics, and God forbid AI, in 2024, the word AI lost all meaning. It was being overused in every context where it didn't even make sense.
Yeah.
And so in 2025, we've already seen this with the term agentic. Agents are now an overloaded term. Mark Benioff at Salesforce has tried to steal the term for his own good with agent force. And so when people start talking about agentic, it means 100 different things to 100 different people. Yes. And I'd love to dive into that separately in a second, Dinesh, around what we see as agents. So we find it incredibly important to be very specific.
Yep.
We like to categorize anything that's a frontier technology. We like to translate it into things I can do today that I could not do yesterday.
Right.
And explain it in English. And so, or your natural language. So we'll chat about that. And I think the next key theme was, I had a great mentor and friend, John Robson. I want to give you a shout out, John. And he used to say, Conor, what gets you from here to here is not the same thing that'll get you from here to there. And so people are using the past as almost a linear extrapolation of what the future is going to look like. And a key theme is it's a non-linear problem. What we're going to see over the next 2 to 3 years is a compound of different frontier technologies working together. The world has already tilted on its axis around some of the innovation that generative AI has unlocked. And I think we're at the early doors of what that's going to mean in terms of how businesses are shaped. You know, if you take a look at the constituents of the Fortune 500, and we take a look at those constituents again in 5 years' time, I think we're going to see rapid change, huge value creation, and a lot of value destruction for people who don't adopt these technologies. So those were the 3 topics that I took. And then the three kind of key themes that I gave, one we touched on already, was around self-writing software, or AI that writes software. The other 2 really were around the idea of generative AI is giving meaning or context to information, to qualitative information, specifically to spoken word or to documents. And so in the past, if someone wanted to get the benefits of data analytics, AI, prescriptive analytics, and predictions, they were told the first thing you must go on is this data strategy journey. So I need to deliver all of my disparate data items now into a data warehouse, or a data lake, or a data lakehouse, or a data fabric, or a data mesh. But I need to duplicate all of those things, and it's going to take you 2 years, and it's going to cost you $10 million. But then Dinesh, then you're going to be able to do all of the AI. The AI is yours for free once you go on this $10 million journey. So it was the ultimate Kevin Costner build it and they will come thesis for organizations that want to take the benefits of AI and analytics into their business and really be data driven in how they make their decisions. But what we've seen with our customers, specifically at AI One, is generative AI is amazing at doing automated interpretation. So that means you can actually leave your data assets where they sit in the systems that they sit in and very easily put a natural language bridge on top that allows you to interrogate and triangulate those disparate data sources in situ. So all of the benefits of a data lake and a data warehouse or a fabric or a mesh without having to do the data transformation and migration journey. You get to the same outcome. You can leapfrog your competition. So we're working with a lot of organizations, and I met a lot of companies in Davos too, that were either about to commence their data lake journey or had gone on the data lake journey and are bitterly disappointed at the results. And so automated interpretation provides an alternative approach that allows you to get all of those benefits, but leaving everything where it is. So that was a key theme as well. And then lastly, it was at the intersection of all of these sort of macro themes, this idea of AI shoring. And so we've taken a look at things like computer vision models that take over your desktop. And I've got a young daughter, and we wanted to bring her to see Moana 2 in downtown New York. These models now are able to take over your Google Chrome, like OpenAI's operator, for example. Take over your Chrome instance, feed it a little bit of information, and it will, rather than waiting for cinemas or other businesses to agentify their businesses, it overly agentifies on the user's side to actually take over, do the keyboard strokes, the mouse clicks, and primarily operates by taking screenshots. So go into Google, type in cinemas near Seven World Trade Center, see what the results are, put that into a multimodal model, understand where I should do my next click, do the click, take another screenshot, figure out which cinema I should choose. And so that's a not very accurate, very costly in terms of token consumption, and actually takes a lot of elapsed time to deliver. But just like self-writing software, this is an area where I think you're going to see tremendous improvement as well in terms of the accuracy, in terms of the latency, and in terms of the cost. So if you fast forward to a world where you can now have a desktop takeover, and I used to run managed services in a prior life, overseeing 20 different customer managed service engagements. And about 80% of the activity was taking a look at a log file, understanding which system that relates to or what series of systems that relates to, going into the underlying documentation and taking a look at whether I need to do a software reboot, a data replay, a hardware failover from a A to a B. So much of that was exactly like trying to book 3 tickets to see Moana 2 in a downtown cinema, except it was solving a different problem, but traversing. And so the ability now for an AI-based system using a combination of triangulating disparate data sources internally and computer vision models means we need to rethink how a managed service type engagement will work for the enterprise. And an AI-based managed service offering, AI shoring, doesn't take a lunch break. So
yeah, exactly, right. So now the possibilities are definitely, humongous. So now you touched on a variety of different topics that I would love to like double click on. First off, going back to one of your earlier points about, the geopolitical scenario between US and China and how some of these, LLM wars have started thanks to the DeepSeek release. But maybe double click on the point about DeepSeek itself. And I think it has changed the perception of like, what LLMs, the costs and the implications behind building something like this at a cheaper way and all that. I don't know. Again, there's a lot of reality checks, ifs and buts that are in place, being countered by both sides. But it's a good thing to have that we are having this argument today that makes it more open and not like monopolistic by a particular company, right? So I think that's a very good thing to have. And then the second thing I want to ask is DeepSeek by itself, right? I mean, there's been a phenomenal rapid adoption in spite of like, oh, this is a Chinese model, the data actually goes into China and this and that. And then people have said, no, 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 host it on the US side, put some guardrails in place and, you can still have a safe secure conversation with it and all that. But there is also a counterpoint about sleeper agents that Anthropic talked about, where an LLM could potentially produce malicious code or code with like bad and harmful intent based on a later year. Like today, it might be producing good code, but next year it might be producing harmful code. Same
Yeah.
LLM, even though it's on this side of the fence and all that. So, having said all that, what's your perception on?
So you covered about 5 topics in one.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think I'll start with the first, and sorry to everyone for being yet another DeepSeek commentator. I don't think the world has rallied around a specific topic where there's so much commentary and insight. So I'll try to keep it brief. But from my perspective, whether DeepSeek was able to be trained through a distillation model from OpenAI, i.e., did they cheat? Knowing that OpenAI trained its initial models on the internet without exactly having explicit permission to do so. I also think that there's damn lies, and statistics when it comes to the $6.2 million used to actually create the distillation-based model. I think DeepSeek have something like 50,000 GPUs within their organization. And so that total cost of ownership, there's a big question mark.
Yeah.
But I think that the core thing that happened from a user perspective is this is like Apple releasing the iPhone. When Apple released the iPhone 16 or 17, they charge a premium. It's a $1,400 product. And the day that the new iPhone is released, the old iPhone is about 65 cents on the dollar. And so all of the unit economics of that investment to develop a new iPhone and then to monetize it typically happens over a 6-week to 12-month journey. Say way more. Sorry, like it's a 6-month to 12-month monetization cycle. So basically, think of a discounted cash flow model that's creaming a premium for that 6-month time frame or 12-month time frame. And now you take a look at, imagine if iPhone were to release its iPhone 17 tomorrow, and then Samsung 6 weeks later released their version for 60 cents on the dollar, causing iPhone to actually reduce the cost of their Frontier model by 70 cents on the dollar. Sorry, our maths are all over the place. In any case, it's not good for people who use a spreadsheet to determine what the return on investment would be for creating a Frontier model. So someone has updated the spreadsheet to say, we thought we could charge a token premium for 12 months. We've now realized we can charge a token premium for 12 weeks. Therefore, the unit economics have changed from an investment thesis perspective.
Right.
But from an end user perspective, this is fantastic. The unit economics of actually deploying AI have reduced. And we often think about this feasibility threshold. The number of use cases that are now economically viable and available has massively increased. So you've read so much about these different paradoxes when it comes to DeepSeek, but as the price of different use cases, that threshold reduces, the number of use cases and the long tail, in fact, outweighs the sum lost effectively by that underlying organization.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is good news ultimately for everybody that's invested in the likes of NVIDIA and in frontier models, but especially good news for end users in terms of the economic viability of building and maintaining AI-based outcomes.
Fantastic. Great.
That's a lot. In terms of the private models, like AWS Bedrock and Hugging Face have their versions of DeepSeek that never go near a Chinese server, so I wouldn't be worried about that. In terms of time bombing, this is a key principle for anybody who is a data leader, an AI leader, or an analytics leader. You are ultimately accountable as a human within your organization for the work that's done by any sort of automation, whether it's deterministic or probabilistic. And so you must create the guardrails to ensure that you are testing and pen testing and screen testing and unit testing and functionally testing and performance testing constantly.
Right.
And shame on you if you're not. And saying that the robot told me so will not be a viable defense for you and your character if something were to blow up.
Exactly. Very good point. I think that's a great cautionary statement there. One other thing that you mentioned in your earlier set of comments was about agents. So I want to quickly touch on that. This has been a great conversation, and I'm trying to keep it under half an hour, but no. We need to talk about this because you mentioned it, and we need to definitely address it. You talked about the semantic aspect of it, right? So everybody is trying to call anything as an agent, and it's definitely been a challenge in terms of defining what an agent actually means and all that. I wrote about it actually in a blog post recently as well about how 2025 may not be the year of the agents, is how I said it, and it's a hot take almost when everybody's saying this is the year of the agents. But the challenge is that one, obviously everybody's calling everything as an agent, which is a big issue of how you define it, and how you actually define the success of an agent within an organization. The second thing is that I speak about this three-legged stool of how an agentic success can be defined, which is one, accuracy of the agent. Second is the autonomy that you'll be giving to the agent. And the third is data privacy and security, right? So this kind of is my definition, how I think an agent can actually be called successful within an organization if you can have these three legs defined appropriately, right? So accuracy, autonomy, and data privacy and security. Now, to your or from your vantage point of where you sit as this AI thought leader, being in places like Davos and having these wonderful, amazing conversations, how real is the agentic adoption out in the real world today? Everybody is talking about agents, hundreds and thousands of agents across the board, hundreds and thousands of companies building agents as well. But nobody's giving me real solid production level use cases that are as critical as an order to cash or a procure to pay and things like that, right? So where do you see this, or how real, or am I not seeing it from my bubble?
No, I think Dinesh, I think people are seeing it and experiencing it and getting the benefits of it, but it comes back to that semantic bleaching. It's so overused that when we actually strip away the term agent and actually just talk about the things you can do today that you couldn't do yesterday. And interesting, your three the three stools, the three legs of your stool, very, very interesting. We take a slightly different take on that, and I'd love to have a tug of war about that in a second.
It's true.
But the word agent comes from the word agency, and agency is another word for autonomy. So you're giving agency to something. You're giving the autonomy to a system or an engine to make a decision on your behalf.
Right.
And really what that means is, in a world where technology has been deterministic, what I mean by that is you put in the same inputs and you get the same outputs as a function. Moving towards generative AI, which is the same inputs and then variance of the output, which is more probabilistic. What we see with agents specifically is moving away from a rules-based world to a hybrid rules and principles-based world. And so an idea of a workflow might be, Dinesh sends me a meeting invite. I've created a rule that says I do not take calls after 2 p.m. It happens to be 2:43 p.m. Then I may update that and say, actually, that's a rule. And we work with organizations who have hundreds of rules. They've got a decision tree that has become so complex over time that actually maintaining that decision tree by itself with all of the if-else statements in there is a full-time job. And so moving away from hundreds of rules towards a principles-based approach. A principle is something that you might say, I don't meet unimportant people before or after 2 p.m. Any day of the week. And this idea of unimportance is something that's subjective. It needs to understand the context of me, what's important to me, what I do, who I am, who Dinesh is, who Stratola are, the fact that we've met before. So it needs to be armed with the context. And then it can make a decision based on how I tee up that principle. And so what we've seen is that 5 to 10 well-architected principles can literally replace hundreds of rules. They're far more reactive to changes in different environments, far easier to maintain, far easier to add to, and ultimately the accuracy or the coverage of the rule, the intention, is vastly improved.
Mhm.
And so we see this in a lot of different walks of life, particularly where things may have a regulatory bent or an example. We're working with one of the world's largest wealth advisor organizations, helping develop specific agents for them. One is a marketing agent. Doesn't
Mm.
sound very sophisticated, but it reviews all attachments in an email prior to pressing send to ensure it complies with the color standards and the brand and the latest artifacts of that organization. And so before you send an email, the marketing agent is checking and it'll give a green light, go. It also makes sure based on where that customer is actually located, it's a
Right.
compliance agent. So if, for example, I'm sending rules to a Canadian-based customer, I want to make sure that I am complying both with New York law, New York state, city law, state law, federal law, but also Canadian law. And therefore, my principles based approach can draw from those artifacts in real time to understand all of the aggregated rules associated with that. And that does not become someone's full time job to update a rules engine to do it instead. And so those are just two very, very simple examples of where agents can play a meaningful role. When we talk about the success of an agent, we explicitly measure it by time, cost, and risk. So we say, this is what your world looks like without agents. You would have to send this material to a marketing team. That marketing team might have a 4-hour SLA to return this to you with the right information and the right documents, probably a whole pile of homework for you to do as well. Once they have responded, you then need to send it to your compliance group, who are ensuring, based on the jurisdictions, again, in the world's best case, a 4-hour SLA. In reality, it's typically a day or 2 days. And so all of a sudden, for me to get Dinesh the information that he needs to move his business forward, it takes me 2 or 3 days to get back. With an agent's world, the time frame, the human elapsed time has condensed hugely. So
Mm.
the time is much less. The cost is using automation where it makes sense, not getting rid of the people who do those marketing activities and legal activities, but getting them focused on more complex, involved initiatives. So the time, the cost, and the risk are the three things that we measure. This is what the world looked like prior to agents. This is what it looked like post agents. And most importantly, you don't have to have all of your data assets in a data lake before you start.
Very nice. Very nice. No, I can see total value in how you described it. Um, I apologize that, because we are running out of time, and I want to like get to also about what you do as well. Uh, so in the context of the bigger scheme of things happening in the AI space, I know that you started something new, and you've like been out there talking about AI once. So tell us more about like your company and what you do as well.
Thanks, Dinesh. Really, what we do is we partner with organizations that are rich with data assets that really aren't synced up in service of better decision making. And so we work with typically very large US-based energy, private equity, healthcare, and financial services organizations who have these jewels of individual data assets that they're not actually able to triangulate in service of doing their job better, focusing their time more. So an example might be if I'm a financial services organization and let's say Dinesh is a high net worth individual that I want to service, how am I ensuring that I'm capturing relevant information in a CRM, triangulating that with different products and offerings that we have based on what Dinesh has spoken about in the past, making sure that the roadmap of what I'm offering in the future is really fit for purpose for Dinesh, and then triangulating that with any publicly facing information. So really, it's about triangulating disparate data sets in service of better products and services as an organization. It's the first thing we do, and we do that using an agent native platform that works in your existing environment. So if you're an on-prem, if you operate with a cloud or a multi-cloud, we operate in your tenant or in your on-prem. So there's no phone home functionality required, and
Mm.
we're not tied to any specific models. So if your constitutional AI says you must only use open source on-prem models like Llama, or you're allowed to use uh, OpenAI's Enterprise 4.5, we figure out, based on your needs and requirements, your data sovereignty, what data can be used in service of what AI or agentic type activities. So the first thing we do is smarter systems. We install our lightweight platform. All of your existing systems get smarter with no major transformation required. The second thing is, using the telemetry from those systems, identify opportunities for IT consolidation and cost saving. So we might say, hey, you're using Salesforce, but really it's a Postgres database with some workflows on front. Here's an off-ramp that you can actually cancel your Salesforce license or your Workday license. And here's your own version, and it takes 3 months. This is going to be self-funded. So we've a lot of customers who are very happy with that, actually. And then lastly, the ability to take your workflows and promote them to become agentic. So an example might be, help me prepare for my meeting with Dinesh by triangulating internal sources. So that becomes a question that I answer, a kind of prompting. I want to promote that now to be an agent, so that whenever I have an upcoming meeting, rather than me having to ask the question every time, actually push me that information. So really moving away from question and answering and rule-based systems, more towards event-driven, prescriptive, agentic workflows, but doing it in a way that's a glide path. No organization is ready to burn down all of their existing systems and rebuild them up agent natively. And so we give them a 1, 2, 3 path to get there over a time frame and we operate at their speed. So that's AI1 in a nutshell. We're a pure play platform company.
Love it. This is very fascinating and exciting, right? I think what enterprises need in terms of cost savings and efficiency as well. You're tapping into the market at the right time. So really exciting to know about that. Good luck. And Connor, once again, thank you so much for joining me on this one. I know that you've had some fantastic insights in the past, and this conversation was even more exhilarating than the other one. So thank you so much for that.
Dinesh, thank you so much for having me. I'm a huge fan. So I hope to chat to you maybe during the summer. We'll have an update on where all these things are at.
Absolutely. We should do that.
Okay. Thanks, Dinesh.
Yeah.
Cheers.